Good morning, everybody. Before we get into the pregame this morning, I want to say happy Thanksgiving. If you watch my videos, there's a very good chance you are one of the people who is doing something special beyond just watching football today. You are finding some way to appreciate and celebrate the national holiday. So, everybody have fun, everybody have a good time. Don't leave it up to a football team whether or not you have a good day. Do your own thing to make sure that your day is not ruined by the actions of an outside force. There's stuff you can control and stuff that you can't control, and do whatever you can to make the things you can control as good as possible. That's what I can say about that. All right. So let's talk about this game now, having put the Thanksgiving stuff out of the way, because, yeah, this is tough. This is hard. This is going to be tricky to maneuver as somebody trying to break this one down. Because usually when the Seahawks go into a game, and some people are going to disagree with what I'm about to say here, but I think most of the time, in most of the games the Seahawks play, if you say Seahawks versus a random other NFL team, the other 31 teams in the league, they have a better roster. They have more talent. They have better players. I like our roster a lot. I don't think we have the best roster in the league. I don't think we have the best players, but I like what we're putting together here in Seattle. And in most games we play, I feel like we have the better roster. And I always say it's going to be on the coaches to make sure that the better roster wins. It's on the coaches to perform in such a way that allows our roster to be the best version of themselves. And sometimes they do, and sometimes, like this most recent game against the Rams, they really don't. But I like our roster. And I will admit, the roster is young and inexperienced, which is probably something that holds it back a little bit. But on the whole, I like our players, and I feel like in any random matchup against another team, we will have an advantage in that area. But I can tell you that this is not going to be one of those weeks. Right now, straight up, we do not have a better roster than the San Francisco 49ers. I don't know if anybody, if any team, has a better roster than the 49ers right now. Honestly, it's not that close. I don't know if the 49ers have the best roster in the league, but I suspect that they do. They are a team that has gone all in and then some. They have pushed everything forward to try to win the Super Bowl now. And obviously, they're not going to be able to keep it together forever, but for the moment, they are stacked with talent. And this is definitely going to be one of those weeks where I look at it and I go, we don't even have the advantage of talent. So, what do you do when your team has a deficiency at talent compared to the opponent? You probably look at the coaches. You say, okay, the coaches are going to have to equalize things. So, who in the Seahawks fan base right now has a lot of faith that this coaching staff is going to be able to equalize things against a more talented opponent? I'm guessing the answer is not very many. So I'm trying to find the angle to attack this game from, and it's hard. It's just straight up not going to be easy. And I'm, I mean, again, I try to get my finger on the pulse of the fandom of the Seahawks fan base. I think that a decent number of Seahawks fans are headed into this one kind of feeling like it's a little bit of an execution. Like, not that we're going to get killed or blown out or destroyed, but how do we win? That's what matters at the end of the day, right? This is not college football. There are no voters to impress. Either you win or you lose. And look, this Seahawks team under Carroll has proven the pundits wrong before. They've come through in situations where not a lot of people were giving them much of a chance to do so. They've answered the bell when things were looking pretty dire. Not every time, but a lot of the time. But what is it going to be this time around if it happens? Because, like, you look at the Niners, let's start with the Niners offense. Let's start with the 49ers on offense. Now, I'm not a big Brock Purdy guy. I think he's okay. I don't think Brock Purdy's all that. I think he has clear weaknesses that you can exploit. I think that there is an opportunity to maybe do something to Brock Purdy. You can play man defense on him. You can man up on these receivers and force him to make tough throws, force him to maybe try to beat you down the field when he doesn't really have the arm that can do those things. But I'm looking at last week's game. You're playing mostly washed up Matt Stafford, who loses Cooper Kupp in the second quarter of that game. So you've got mediocre at best receivers, and you still don't have the balls to man up throughout that game. You still fall back on your soft zone stuff at the end and give it away. You didn't do it there. Why do I think you're going to do it now? Because now you're playing a receiver core that is actually really good. Debo and Ayuk are one of the best 1-2 combos in the entire NFL at receiver. Ayuk in particular has been a breakout stud. And then you've got George Kittle, one of the best tight ends in football. I know he gets hurt a little bit more as he gets older, but he's still really, really good. And this is a receiver core that can actually push you with their talent. Like, we have great corners here, Witherspoon, Woolen, and Brown, and don't misunderstand me here. I absolutely want this team to tell Woolen and Witherspoon and Brown to man up on these receivers, go at it the best they can, play aggressively, get into one-on-one man situations, and just, if they get beat, they get beat, but go out playing your football. I absolutely want this team to do that. But this is a game where I can at least say, yeah, if you do that, you might get burned because these guys are really good. And we just watched a game on Sunday where you get a big break in the second quarter of that game when Cooper Kupp leaves. You're down to Puka, Atwell, and Skoronek, I think is his name. Who's their number 3 receiver at that point? Is it Skoronek? I don't even know. So you're playing the lesser part of the Rams receiver core. You still don't have the balls to just man up and play tight, play man coverage. You're dropping back into your soft zones and giving the game away against those receivers. So how am I going to believe you're going to do it on these receivers who could actually beat you semi-frequently if you do that? And look, I mean, the Seahawks played good run defense last week against the Rams, but the 49ers, they actually have a top running back. McCaffrey's playing really well this year, doing a lot of really good stuff for that offense. He's been doing it both ways, as a runner and a receiver. And given what we've seen this run defense do in some of these games, where, yeah, it's been good, but it hasn't been bulletproof, I'm not loving our ability to clamp down there. Like, we did clamp down against the run against the Rams pretty well, but this is a little bit of a different challenge here. The one area on this 49ers offense that is kind of a weakness right now is the offensive line, because both their guards have a good chance of missing this game. They really have one good player on that offensive line, but our defensive line is so thin right now because, I hate to say it, the team was kind of designed that way. You chose to have a defensive line this thin, that I don't even know if we can take advantage of it. So even that, I can point out and say, yeah, this is a problem, but is it a problem the Seahawks can even exploit? I kind of feel like the answer is no. So hopefully the improvements we've made on defense since last year bear themselves out in some way, but you are starting from a very, very low data point. Last year, last time you played the Niners in the playoff game, to my recollection, it was something like 500 yards of offense, 300 passing, 200 rushing, 41 points, no turnovers. Maybe we had 1 sack, but it might have been 0 sacks. And like it was as bad a game as you can play defensively. Nothing went well. Nothing worked. You had really, I think you could argue there was not a single play in that game on defense that you can be proud of. So yeah, do better than that, I'm sure, but are you gonna actually be good? There is a Grand Canyon sized chasm between what you did against the Niners last year in the playoffs and good. So I don't know. I imagine it'll be a little bit better. Maybe we even force a turnover. If we play the right way on defense, we could, but they just have the players. They have the players that the Rams don't. And the reason why the defense was good for most of the game against the Rams, they were, I can admit that, is because the Rams don't really have the talent right now. They are low on talent. But now you have a team that can actually throw some Pro Bowl level players at you. Yikes. So I got nothing there. And then the Niners defense, I mean, their defensive line is as stacked as it comes. Bosa, Armstead, Hargrave, now Chase Young, a little bit of Drake Jackson in there, a little bit of Kinlaw, which, I mean, okay. Maybe not Kinlaw, but it's a super stacked defensive line. They get pressure without blitzing, and maybe that's the silver lining here. We won't have to deal with a team that blitzes a lot, but they can generate pressure without it. Now, I would say I'd rather play a team that doesn't blitz, like the 49ers, than a team that blitzes constantly, because we've proven we can't really handle the blitzes that well. But I imagine the pressure is going to get home all the same. They got maybe the best linebackers in the game with Warner and Greenlaw. Really, really good. I can't think of a 1-2 punch at linebacker that's better than that. So, some people are pointing out things like, oh, Chase Young doesn't play the run that well. Well, they got the linebackers to cover for him if that's the case. And their secondary, which is probably the weak point of that defense, and now they're down Hufanga, it's really not playing that bad this year. Ward's been good. Now, Ward is a guy who gets away with a ton of penalties, and that's part of the reason why he's good, but it doesn't really matter how you're good. It just matters that you're good. Jair Brown, I believe his name is Jair Brown, has been replacing Hufanga, and he's good. He's a guy they drafted pretty high in the draft last year. Well, this year. And he was good coming out of college, and so far he's been good in San Fran. Their secondary is not really that big of a weakness. Now, it's the closest thing that defense has to a weakness, but it's hard to find what you're going to be able to, quote unquote, take advantage of. Like, again, I'm glad we're playing a defense that isn't going to throw a ton of blitzes at you, but at the same time, I'm aware of the fact that they're going to get pressure with 4, and then you're going to have to make throws against 7 guys in coverage. You've got Fred Warner out there, probably the best cover linebacker in the league right now. You've got Greenlaw's pretty good in coverage as well. You're going to have to fit the ball into really, really tight holes. And it's just such a thing to have to overcome. Now, we'll see how the offensive line does, playing a little bit more mano-a-mano, because Charles Cross has actually played 2 really good games in a row for the Seahawks. I want to say that. I want to give him full credit for that. Cross has been great lately. He's coming into his own, starting to play some really nice football. And I do think that we are starting to at least get the guys we want to have out there, which, I mean, at some point that should have some kind of an impact, right? Like, if you're going to ask Damian Lewis to just, look, block the guy in front of you, don't worry about picking up stunts, don't worry about the blitzes, don't worry about having to pick up a blitzing safety, just take the guy in front of you. I'm sure that helps. Same for guys like Phil Haynes or Evan Brown, but I mean, the talent discrepancy really kind of gets out of hand when you get into that interior. Our interior offensive line is, I mean, it's basically the worst case scenario, because I went into this year thinking to myself, Damian Lewis, Phil Haynes, and Evan Brown are all in contract years. So we're going to get the best version of those players. And we're not. Evan Brown has fallen off a cliff lately. Phil Haynes has reverted to the old Phil Haynes, and I don't know what to say about Damian Lewis. So the talent discrepancy is just overwhelming. So you've got that going on. We're not going to get Abe Lucas back, which is going to be a problem in this game. We don't have Walker. Forget about having Ken Walker in this game, by the way. I'm going to tell you that right now. So it's going to be hard to remain balanced. About the only thing that I can really say is that you got to just hope that Gino has it. You got to hope that DK and Lockett have it. Those guys are at least healthy. But Geno, I think he's going to play. I expect him to play, but I mean, there's enough hard about this matchup if you're Geno Smith and now you're playing at less than 100%. It's like I'm going to put the game on your shoulders when you've got the what is it, bruised tricep? Like, I want to at least be able to run the ball a little bit. That's something that we did okay at the start of that 49ers playoff game. But now we don't have Walker, and, credit to where credit's due to Charbonnet, but I'm not really believing that he's going to be able to completely replace Walker. And look, guys like Kenny McIntosh and to a certain extent DJ Dallas are better off when they're used as receivers than pure running backs most of the time. So I don't know where we break through here. Like maybe if we had a fully healthy offensive line that was actually working in unison, that was actually working as one unit right now, maybe, maybe then you could stop that rush enough to at least give Geno some opportunities. And maybe if Geno was 100%, and maybe if this and that, like as it stands, this is tough. We're at home, but I've seen some stuff saying that there's not going to be that much of a turnout from Seahawks fans for this game tonight. I'm not expecting a transcendent crowd because I think that the opportunity to pull this fan base in on this season has kind of been lost, and the team is going to have to do their own work to get it back. They're not going to get handed the opportunity to take it back by the fans. The fans are I don't know. We'll see what happens tonight. But I'm getting the sense that the fans right now are kind of in a holding pattern saying, if you want me to get invested in this season again, you need to earn it. So I'm not expecting the fans to take over and just dominate the game single-handedly tonight and force Brock Purdy into 18 false starts and 7 interceptions. So, yeah, I say 27-17 Niners. And look, crazy stuff happens in the NFL all the time. Like a lot of people did not give the Seahawks a chance in San Francisco 4 years ago in that Clowney game, but Clowney just turned into a superhero for one game, and crazy stuff happened, and you won. So maybe something like that can happen again, but short of that, I'm not feeling it. See you guys later. Go Hawks.